This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, miniatures, and paints, discount prices at miniaturemarket.com. Hello everybody, welcome to another review corner. Well, again, with the celebration of GW now being able to be sold online by Miniature Market, we're taking a good look at some of these great GW games. But the one that has always been near and dear to my heart, it was the very first game my wife ever bought me, is none other than the fantastic Blood Bowl. So many people have tried to imitate it. You can have your Dread Balls, your Guild Balls, and everything else. But is the original still the best? Is Blood Bowl still the game that everybody should go to instead of all these other spin-offs? There's only one way to find out. Let's go down to the table and take a look. So, the first thing you notice when you take this out of the box is how much bigger this pitch is compared to the old pitch of the 90s, or even the one that they came out in 2000. Another cool thing about it is that completely on the other side, there's another pitch. Now, that was not something that you would normally have, which was really, really cool. The models are state-of-the-art. It's as simple as that. These orcs are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I remember having the old orcs. Or, to go one better, how would you like to have a halfling team called the New York Midgets? Right? No? Probably not. Let's just put it this way, they weren't that good. The humans have some fantastic and wonderful poses, and as you can see, these are just some of the best models that they've done for Blood Bowl yet. Now, I'm not going to explain every rule. I'm just going to go over a couple of things really, really quickly. Each comes with a player board. On one side, of course, is the humans, and the other side is the orcs, or, you know, however you want to call it, depending on what team that you're going to use. A half is 8 turns. Okay, so you would get to move all your players. So you would do whatever movement with this guy and stop, and that would be it. And you would not be able to do his movement again. Then you would be able to move the next guy and do all his actions. Once you've completed all 11 guys, or if your team is still still upright and you have 11 guys, that would be the end of your turn. You would declare the end of your turn. Then the other person would then do their first turn. So it goes in sequential order. It's not one of those games. You take all your moves first, and then the other team takes all their moves. So the team comes with a whole bunch of different types of players. And you can see that it has a bunch of stats. Every one of these stats are important. Okay, movement, how much movement you can perform. So, for instance, if we wanted to move 6 with this particular player, we would move from each square to each square. You can move diagonally, you can move back, however you want to move, you can move. So it would be 1, 2, and then you would continue. Next is strength. Strength comes into play, especially when you are head up with another player of the opposite team, and you want to perform what is called a tackle. So let's take for instance our good friend here who has a strength of 4. That means it would be an advantage for him to roll him. He would get 2 dice. So the orc player would, if he was tackling the human player, would get 2 blocking dice. So let's take a look at these dice and see exactly what they do. Here is pushed. The defending player is pushed back 1 square by the blocking player. So if we were able to roll this device here, this player, instead of knocking him down, would be able to push him in any square within these 3 squares. He cannot push him this way, he cannot push him that way, and he has to go back. If there are other players in the way, he has to go to an open spot, such as there. The next symbol is an explanation. Defender stumbles. Unless the defender uses the dodge skill, they are pushed back and then knocked down. If they do use the dodge skill, they are only pushed back, and the attacking player may follow up the defender. So you have to have dodge, and if you don't have dodge, then you're going to fall. The next one is a blast mark and a skull. That is both down. That means if this is rolled and nobody has the block skill, which we won't go into all the skills, both players would go down and both players would roll on the injury table. What's the injury table? We'll talk about that soon enough. Finally, there is the defender down. The defender down is a successful block, which means that if you roll that, you get to knock this guy down and push him back into a following square. But you don't have to if you don't want to. You can leave him right there. Actually, he would go back, and you have the choice of whether to follow up or not. Then you would roll on an injury table. The final thing is the skull, which is the attacker down, which means that you would go down when you tried to block somebody else. Now, let's say, for instance, that we just roll clean and we knock our good friend down here. He goes back straight back. Once you have achieved this and knocked the player down, you then take 2d6. You roll the 2d6, and for instance, on a 3 here, the player's just stunned. So he would just be stunned. And next turn, he would be able to turn over, and then the following turn, he will be able to stand up. Okay, so in sequential, he gets knocked down and stunned. Were you to roll anything from an 8 and 9, he is KO'd and knocked out until the next kickoff, and he goes into an injury box. And on a 10 or 12 is a casualty, which means he's taking off the board, and then at the end of the game, you would roll on the injury table to see what kind of damage is done to him, to see if he gets to play a next match or if you have to buy another player. So that primarily is the whole battle function of it. The object is to score, to get into the end zone, into this little area here, which is the end zone. You want to get there and control the ball. You can pass. There's a whole bunch of passing mechanisms, and that's where your agility will come in. You will roll on a table to determine on how far and measure how far that you can actually pass. If this person was to pass here, you would roll. First, he would roll to see if he could throw it accurately, and then he can roll to see if he catches it. So there's a lot of planning in each and every move that you make. On other blocking situations, should you have a low strength against a high strength, you can counteract it by having another player in here. So it would be his 3 strength plus 1, because he gets an assist from this gentleman, and that would be an even die. So you would get 1 die instead of 2 die he chooses. So, and a lot of times it's a lot more favorable. Unfortunately, with that roll, he would fall down, which would be horrible. You have things called rerolls. You can use 1 reroll per turn. And a lot of times you want to save those rerolls because a lot of nutty things happen. One of the cool things about this new system or new game is instead of just getting 3 blocking dice, each side get their own blocking dice, which is kind of nice, as well as they get their own D6. So that's something new. And of course, you can start a league and do all kinds of really neat things. We're not going to cover everything. There's passing, there's running the ball, there's a lot of strategy. Each teams are different. They have different types. One is built on strength but low agility. Some have high agility but very little strength. Some have very good movement, like the rats, the Skaven. They fly all over the place. This is one of my favorite games, without question. And I think this is something you'll really, really, really enjoy. Well, that's it for this. Why don't we go up top and get my final thoughts on Blood Bowl. Well, there you have it. Of course, I got to finish up painting up some of my teams, but it comes with two fantastic teams, the humans and the orcs. This is a great game. There's no other way around it. It has such a great history. It has such great lore. And the best part about it, if you play it as a one-off, it's kind of like, okay, that was fun. And it is a fun game, and it's a very intense game. It's something with a lot of deep strategy to it. But if you're just going to play a bunch of one-offs, you're going to go, okay. But the depth of playing in a league and taking your team and building it slowly through that league as it gets skill points and does all kinds of different things is just absolutely one of the best things. It's fantasy football before there was fantasy football. Fantasy football, if you really think about it. Fantasy football. Yeah, there you go. To me, this is one of the best games ever made. I love this game. I've played it for close to 30 years. I still have every incarnation of it, and this upgrading the models is fantastic. The bigger board is also fantastic. I love everything about this. I'm looking forward to more and more teams as they break them out, and just adding to this and starting up a big league and just having at it. It's one of those cult games that either you really get it or you don't. But for me, it's one of my favorite all time. If I have to rate this, it's definitely a 4.5 out of 5. I really love this game. I love that they're keeping the tradition going, and Blood Bowl is one of my favorite games of all time. Well, that's it for this review corner. I'm Rob Warren, and we will see you very soon. Have a great week, everyone. Sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, videos, and written reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, online gaming superstore, thousands of games and minis, discount prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.